This is what Albert Einstein's desk looked like the day he died. This is what the Eiffel Tower looked like as it was being built. It was built in time for the 1889 World's Fair. Recognize these big old rocks? This is Mount Rushmore before the presidential heads were carved into it. This is how big Plymouth Rock is in real life. This is what Queen Elizabeth II looked like when she was 18. This is what one of the world's oldest pairs of Levi's jeans looks like. It's from between 1886 and 1902. The Great Sphinx of Giza has a tail. Ain't that neat? This right here is what one of the Titanic's lifeboats looked like before the passengers were rescued. This is what Abraham Lincoln looked like when he became president in 1861. And this is what he looked like 4 short years later, in 1865. He quite literally had seen some things. Speaking of Honest Abe, this is Ralph Lincoln, the 11th generation cousin of Abraham Lincoln, specifically his third cousin many, many, many times removed. This is Ruth Malcolmson, the woman who won the 1924 Miss America pageant. This is how thick one of the cables holding up the Golden Gate Bridge is. This is what Bob Ross looked like before he had his iconic hairdo. These were some of the job necessities for a TWA flight attendant in the 1940s. This is what Hong Kong looked like circa 1920. And here's what it looks like today. I count at least 2 new buildings. Before CGI, this is how MGM filmed its iconic movie intro. You know, this one. This is Maud Wagner, who is widely believed to be the first female professional tattoo artist in the US. This is what the Oval Office looks like without any furniture in it. This Zillow-esque picture is from a 2001 renovation of the space. This is what a dollar bill looked like in 1917. This right here is Vincent van Gogh's painting palette. Fascinating! This is what first class on a plane in 1960 looked like. This is Robert Wadlow, the tallest man who ever lived. Before he died, he measured 8 feet 11 inches tall. And this is Pauline Musters, the shortest woman ever to live. She was 24 inches tall when she died at the age of 19. This is what the end of 13,000 miles of the Great Wall of China looks like. This is the eastern end of the wall at the Yellow Sea. This painting by Leonardo da Vinci is the most expensive painting ever sold. The painting, Salvator Mundi, sold for $450 million in 2017. There's also some controversy as to how much Leo had to do with it, but that's for another post. This, wicker chairs and all, is what the interior of a plane looked like in 1925. Actually, fun fact, this is apparently the first time an in-flight film was shown on a flight. This 3,000-pound absolute unit is Lubber, the world's largest horse back in 1930. In 1955, it cost $4.75 to go on 10 rides at Disneyland. That's a little over $50 today. This is the violin Wallace Hartley, band leader on the Titanic, played as the ship sank. This monument to the doomed Donner Party shows just how deep the snow the unfortunate travellers had to deal with was. This is the world's oldest surviving photograph, taken by Nicéphore Niepce in 1827. It's called View from the Window at Le Gras. It's, well, a view from a window. Here's what the original, unenhanced world's oldest picture looks like today. This is the Spire wine bottle, the oldest known bottle of wine on Earth. It's almost 1,700 years old and likely still drinkable. The presidents on Mount Rushmore were originally planned to look like this. Michelangelo's David statue is really, really big in person. This is what a 3-year-old Albert Einstein looked like. This is what the iceberg that sank the Titanic looked like after being hit. This is what the Mayan temple at Chichen Itza looked like before it was restored, and this is what it looks like today. This is Ham the chimpanzee, the first ape launched into space. He was sent up to test cognitive function in space, as well as the safety of the rocket and capsule being sent up. Ham's mission was successful, and he returned to Earth unharmed and a true American hero. In 1907, world-class swimmer Annette Kellerman was arrested for indecency after she wore a bathing suit like this one to Revere Beach in Massachusetts. This pointy thing is what a nuclear bomb actually looks like. In 1962, 3 men escaped Alcatraz Island prison after fooling guards with papier-mâché decoy heads that looked like this. This man, Gay Jewell, was declared the world's heaviest man in 1899. According to the Strand magazine, he loved to play the violin and make others laugh. This is what the nuclear bombing of Nagasaki, Japan looked like from the ground. This beauty is Britain's oldest door, constructed almost 1,000 years ago in the 1150s. It's located in Westminster Abbey. This is Charles Ponzi, the infamous scammer Ponzi schemes got their name from. This is a record of everyone who died and how they died in London during 1 week in 1665. This is Margaret Gorman, the woman who won the very first Miss America competition in 1921. This is just a small sample of what researchers found in King Tut's tomb after discovering it in 1922. You can see an entire chariot just casually chilling there. Before alarm clocks, people known as knocker-ups would get paid to go around in the early hours of the morning and bang on windows to wake people up. This picture, straight out of Harold Potter, is of the former Cincinnati Public Library, built in 1874 and demolished in 1955. This is a wax sculpture of Thomas Wedders, the man whose 7.5-inch nose was apparently the largest nose in history. This is a picture from Abraham Lincoln's second inauguration in 1865. Can you spot him? Speaking of Lincoln, this man, Valentine Tapley, vowed in 1860 to never cut his beard again if Abraham Lincoln was elected president. Here's him in 1896. He won 5th place at a world's longest beard competition that year. These are the real-life outfits doctors would wear to treat plague patients in the 1600s. This is what the scalp of the Statue of Liberty looks like from the torch. This is what the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. looked like in 1907. And this is what it looked like 100 years later. This is what the first-class lounge on the Titanic looked like. And this is what the third-class dining room of the Titanic's sister ship, the Olympic, looked like. The man in the middle in this picture is a college-aged Richard Nixon. He was a member of the Whittier College football team. This is the Times Building, the center of New York's Times Square, under construction in 1903. And here's what that same area looks like over 100 years later. The original design for the Michelin Man was absolutely terrifying. This is what the Golden Gate Bridge looked like while it was under construction. These These are hand-drawn sketches of the phases of the moon Galileo Galilei drew in 1610. In the 1930s, this couple won an Atlantic City dance marathon after dancing for 1,473 hours. And yes, people did fall asleep standing up while dancing at these marathons. Someone had to hand-carve all of the president's eyes on Mount Rushmore. This is the message then President Jimmy Carter sent aboard the Voyager spacecraft to any aliens the ship might encounter. And finally, California once had a place called the California Alligator Farm, where children were encouraged to get up close and personal with alligators and even take them for rides. The Volkswagen Classic van, nearly 70 years since its introduction, remains one of the most beloved and recognizable vehicles in automotive history. With its engine positioned at the back, the van offered drivers a clear, expansive view of the road ahead, as well as ample space for surfboards, camping gear, and other essentials for adventures. From its debut in 1950 through the late 1960s, the Volkswagen van served as the original minivan, providing a more spacious alternative to the traditional station wagon. As the counterculture movement took hold, the van became a symbol of freedom and rebellion, cementing its place in history as the quintessential ride for hippies, beachgoers, and road-tripping adventurers. By the 1980s, however, the van's association with the 1970s led to a decline in its popularity, as trends shifted away from its laid-back image. Yet, looking back, the van's charm remains undeniable. Officially referred to by various names depending on its body type, such as the Transporter, Combi, or Microbus, the Volkswagen Type 2 became a global automotive icon under a range of informal monikers. In the United States, it was commonly known as the Volkswagen Station Wagon, or simply the bus, while in the UK it earned the nickname Camper, and in Germany it was affectionately called the Bulli. The designation Type 2 originated from its place in Volkswagen's production lineup, following the company's flagship Type 1, the original Volkswagen, or Beetle, as it is more commonly known across the world. In the 1950s, it was a revolutionary design, distinct from anything else on the road. Affordable, incredibly spacious, and beautifully simple, it offered endless possibilities. Whether used as a family camper, a mobile business, a surf van, or a personalized love shack complete with shag carpeting, the Volkswagen van was truly a blank canvas for creativity. Unlike its iconic sibling, the Beetle, the VW van underwent constant reinvention, evolving into unique and diverse styles. Among the most famous variations were the Samba, featuring numerous windows and a skylight roof, the Westie, a camper with a pop-up top for extra space, and the Caravelle, known for its luxurious interior upgrades. Each version offered something special, making the van as versatile as it was iconic. Mike Tyson, born on June 30th, 1966, in Brooklyn, New York, is a name that will forever be etched in the records of professional boxing history. His career, particularly during the 1980s, left an indelible mark on the sport and captivated audiences around the world. Known for his explosive power, relentless aggression, and captivating personality, Tyson became a cultural icon during this era. Tyson's professional career in the 1980s can be described as a whirlwind of success, dominance, and controversy. Under the guidance of his mentor and trainer, Cus D'Amato, Tyson quickly rose through the ranks of the heavyweight division, leaving a trail of defeated opponents in his wake. With a string of devastating knockout victories, Tyson garnered attention not only for his unparalleled boxing skills, but also for his electrifying presence in the ring. In November 1985, at the tender age of 20, Tyson made history by becoming the youngest heavyweight champion ever. The record-breaking moment came when he defeated Trevor Berbick in a display of ferocious power and skill. Tyson's ascendancy to the top of the boxing world seemed inevitable, and his aura of invincibility captivated fans and pundits alike. Tyson's fighting style was a sight to behold. Combining lightning-fast hand speed with bone-crushing power, he unleashed a barrage of punches that left opponents dazed and defeated. His signature move, the devastating left hook to the body followed by a thunderous uppercut, became his trademark. This lethal combination earned him a fearsome reputation as one of the most destructive punchers in the history of the sport. Outside the ring, Tyson's personal life and relationships frequently made headlines during the 1980s. His marriage to actress Robin Givens attracted significant media attention, characterized by publicized interviews and rumors of domestic turbulence. The couple's tumultuous relationship played out in the public eye, providing a glimpse into the complex world of fame, love, and personal struggles. While Tyson's professional life was soaring, his personal life became entangled in legal issues. In 1992, he was convicted of rape and sentenced to prison, a devastating blow to his career and public image. This dark chapter cast a shadow over his achievements, forcing him to confront the consequences of his actions and undergo a period of personal reflection and redemption. Despite the challenges he faced, Tyson's impact on popular culture during the 1980s cannot be overstated. His brash and unapologetic personality, coupled with his electrifying performances in the ring, made him a larger-than-life figure. He transcended the world of sports, becoming a pop culture phenomenon. Tyson's interviews, often filled with candid and controversial statements, drew both admiration and criticism, cementing his status as a polarizing figure. During the 1980s, a distinct pop culture aesthetic shaped the way teenagers decorated their bedrooms, regardless of gender. These spaces were a vibrant mix of cartoons, movies, and toys, capturing the essence of the era. The decor often mirrored the excitement of a Saturday morning cartoon lineup, bursting with color and personality. For teenagers in this decade, their bedroom was an extension of their personality, where they could escape the pressures of the outside world and be themselves. What did a typical 1980s bedroom look like? This vintage collection of photos shows the essentials that defined every kid's room during that time, offering a nostalgic glimpse into the decade's most iconic bedroom trends. A typical teenage bedroom in the 1980s was a vibrant tapestry of colors, patterns, and textures that reflected the unique tastes and interests of the teenager. This eclectic environment featured everything from neon lights and cassette players to posters of favorite bands and stacks of comic books, each element contributing to a personalized space. At the heart of these vibrant bedrooms stood the bed, often a twin size and supported by a sturdy metal or wooden frame. For those with a penchant for sleepovers, bunk beds were a popular choice, adding a playful element to the room. Bedding was anything but ordinary, featuring bold geometric patterns, eye-catching stripes, and playful polka dots. Girls often went for floral and paisley prints that added a touch of whimsy to their space. Electronics were a big part of the typical 80s teenager's bedroom. Television sets were often bulky and heavy, with smaller screens compared to today's standards. VCRs were becoming more popular, allowing teenagers to rent and watch movies at home. Stereo systems were also a must-have, with cassette players and large speakers for blasting music. Music was an integral part of teenage life, and these systems helped set the mood for parties, study sessions, or just relaxing with friends. Telephones were a common feature in many rooms, with answering machines becoming increasingly popular toward the decade's end. Walls were often adorned with vibrant posters featuring beloved bands, iconic musicians, hot girls, and popular movies and television shows. Neon lights and lava lamps added a playful touch, casting colorful, funky glows that enhanced the room's lively atmosphere. Many teenagers also embraced decorative flags, tapestries, or bead curtains. Board games and puzzles were popular pastimes, with classics like Monopoly, Scrabble, and Rubik's Cube frequently pulled from shelves for friendly competitions. As video game consoles gained traction, the mid-80s saw the launch of the Nintendo Entertainment System, which quickly became a favorite among gamers. New York City in the 1970s and 1980s was marked by serious challenges to everyday life. Graffiti-covered subways, rampant vandalism, piles of uncollected garbage, and high crime rates. Noise, drugs, and other social issues added to the city's struggles, making the streets chaotic and unpredictable. Sidewalks were often littered with dog waste, waiting to catch both unsuspecting visitors and seasoned New Yorkers who happened to lose focus for a moment. It was a rough, gritty time, far from the image of a thriving metropolis. One of the more disruptive features of life during this period was the boombox. These portable stereos were often played at full volume, contributing to the overwhelming noise of the city. Whether on busy streets or in places that should have offered some peace, like parks, the boombox seemed unavoidable. Adding to the frustration, the music was largely limited to disco or hip-hop, leaving little room for other genres. It became an inescapable part of the urban soundscape. Boomboxes were known for their weight and size, making them cumbersome to carry for long periods. The name itself stemmed from their boxy design and powerful bass-boosting speakers that produced a distinct boom. Although intended for portability, the increasing demand for louder sound and deeper bass resulted in larger, heavier models by the 1980s. Some even as big as a suitcase. A few of the larger boomboxes even featured vertically mounted record turntables. Most boomboxes ran on batteries, with some models requiring as many as 20 D-cell batteries, which only lasted a day of continuous use. For frequent users, the cost of batteries became a significant expense. The boombox quickly became a symbol of urban culture in the United States, particularly among African American and Latino youth, earning the nickname Ghetto Blaster due to its widespread presence in these communities. Boomboxes came in a wide range of sizes and power requirements. The larger, more powerful models often needed 10 or more D-cell batteries, could span over 76 centimeters, 30 inches in width, and weighed upwards of 12 kilograms, 26 pounds. Some units even utilized a 12-volt sealed lead-acid battery or served as portable enclosures for car audio systems. The introduction of audio jacks helped propel the boombox to peak popularity, driving innovation in both design and functionality. High-end models were equipped with features and sound quality that rivaled some home stereo systems. Most boomboxes included basic controls such as volume, tone, and left-right balance, though the quality of these features varied widely across different models. In Spike Lee's 1989 film Do the Right Thing, the character Radio Raheem embodies the cultural associations of the boombox, or ghetto blaster, serving as a strong representation of its prominence among urban youth in American media. Over time, as these devices became more ubiquitous, cities began to ban them from public spaces, and their presence on the streets gradually diminished. The boombox became deeply intertwined with hip-hop culture, with figures like Fab Five Freddy crediting it as instrumental in the genre's rise. Certain models, such as the JVC RCM90 and Sharp GF777, gained a reputation as boombox kings for their ability to overpower others in music battles. These models were a common sight at street gatherings and in battles where volume and sound quality were crucial. Iconic groups like the Beastie Boys embraced the boombox as part of their identity, while bands like The Clash always had one in tow. The 1990s marked a turning point for the boombox as its dominance in popular culture began to wane. The introduction of more compact devices like the Walkman made large, heavy boomboxes less practical, and they gradually disappeared from city streets. As boombox enthusiast Lyle Awerko puts it, towards the end of any culture, you have the second or third generation that steps into the culture, which is so far from the origination, it's the impression of what's real, but it's not the full definition of what's real, it's just cheesy. According to the Consumer Electronics Association, only 329,000 boombox units without CD players were sold in the United States in 2003, a stark contrast to the 20.4 million sold at their peak in 1986. These black and white photographs, taken by life photographer Cornell Carper in 1947, beautifully capture the style of teenage girls from Highland Park High School during the mid to late 1940s. These images provide a glimpse into the fashion and elegance of the era, underlining the timeless appeal of youth. The concept of the teenager had only recently been introduced, with the term first coined in 1941. By 1944, 17 magazine had published its inaugural issue, catering specifically to this new demographic. The magazine focused on fashion and interests that were distinctively aimed at young women who were no longer children, but not yet adults. In the 1940s, the quintessential teenage girl's outfit consisted of a pleated plaid skirt, a snug-fitting sweater layered over a blouse, white bobby socks, and a pair of loafers or saddle shoes. This ensemble was practical and comfortable, striking a balance between being dressy enough for school while still casual enough for after-school activities. Accessories were kept minimal, with options like a chain necklace, ID bracelet, or a scarf. Hairstyles typically featured long hair pulled back to one or both sides. Although some details, such as sock styles or types of jewelry, evolved over time, the overall look remained consistent well into the early 1950s. Contrasting this was the trend of form-fitting sweaters, a style popularized by movie stars known as sweater girls during the late 1940s and early 1950s. Sweaters made from brushed wool or angora, which had a fuzzy texture, were especially fashionable. Later in the decade, sweaters with embroidered motifs, such as animals, flowers, and insects, became a popular fad. One of the most iconic fashion pieces of the 1940s was the Sloppy Joe sweater, a plain crew neck or button-up cardigan worn in a larger size for a relaxed, boxy fit. Contrasting this was the trend of form-fitting sweaters, a style popularized by movie stars known as sweater girls during the late 1940s and early 1950s. Sweaters made from brushed wool or angora, which had a fuzzy texture, were especially fashionable. Later in the decade, sweaters with embroidered motifs, such as animals, flowers, and insects, became a popular fad. Highland Park High School is a public, co-educational high school situated just north of downtown Dallas in University Park, Dallas County, Texas. The school's attendance zone includes the entire city of University Park, most of the town of Highland Park, and portions of Dallas. The origins of Highland Park High School trace back to the Armstrong School, a yellow brick schoolhouse that opened on October 12, 1915, initially offering education only up to the 9th grade. In 1922, after the district acquired 11 lots in 1920, the high school moved to its own dedicated building on Normandy Avenue. That same year, the 10th grade was introduced, followed by the addition of the 11th grade the next year. In 1924, Highland Park Independent School District celebrated its first high school graduation ceremony on June 2nd, with 34 students comprising the inaugural graduating class. At that time, only 11 years of schooling were required for college admission. It wasn't until 1937 that the 12th grade was added to the curriculum, aligning the school with broader educational standards. When it opened in 1909, the Queensboro Bridge featured the two longest steel cantilever spans globally at the time, spanning 1,182 feet from Manhattan to Blackwell's Island and 984 feet from Blackwell's Island to Queens. These impressive spans held the record as the longest cantilever spans in the world until the Quebec Bridge was completed in 1917. The bridge itself stretches over an impressive total length of 3,724.5 feet. In its original design, the Queensboro Bridge accommodated 2 elevated railway lines, 2 trolley lines, 6 lanes for carriages, and 2 pedestrian walkways. As early as 1804, numerous designs were proposed for a bridge crossing the East River at Blackwell's Island, now known as Roosevelt Island. These proposals considered various locations, ranging from 52nd to 82nd Streets. The initial plans for a bridge at 59th Street were developed by engineers R.S. Buck, S.R. Probasco, and J. Shea. Their design featured a multi-span cantilever structure with suspended spans, where the central truss is supported by the ends of the cantilever arms. Although work on the bridge's foundations began in late 1901, significant changes were introduced when Gustav Lindenthal was appointed Commissioner of Bridges in 1850-1902. Lindenthal's design was distinctive in its omission of a suspended span between the cantilever arms and its use of massive steel eye-bars for the upper chord. To enhance the bridge's aesthetic appeal, Lindenthal enlisted architect Henry Hornbostel to create its decorative elements. At the same time, New York Mayor Seth Low appointed an independent panel of engineers to evaluate both Lindenthal's and Buck's designs. The panel ultimately recommended a hybrid approach, incorporating Buck's deck cross-section with Lindenthal's concept of eliminating the suspended span. The Queensboro Bridge was engineered to support dead loads through pure cantilever action, while live loads were managed as if it were a continuous bridge. This innovative approach required the use of advanced structural analysis techniques. In 1907, the collapse of the first Quebec Bridge, also a steel cantilever structure, prompted a thorough re-evaluation of the Queensboro Bridge's design. The findings from this review were published and became the subject of discussion in various engineering journals. To alleviate some of the weight on the bridge, 2 of the 4 rail lines initially planned for the upper level were removed. Like many of New York City's major bridges constructed in the early 20th century, the Queensboro Bridge was the product of collaboration among prominent bridge engineers, multiple design revisions, and the influence of local political and business interests. Its construction played a crucial role in the development of both Midtown and Upper Manhattan, as well as the borough of Queens, helping to shape these areas into vital parts of the city. Elevated service ceased in 1942, followed by trolley service in 1957. The upper-level roadways were built in the early 1930s and the late 1950s. Designated as a New York City landmark in 1973, the bridge was renovated extensively from the late 1970s to the 1990s. The bridge was officially renamed in 2011 in honor of former New York City Mayor Ed Koch, and another renovation occurred in the early 2000s. The Sunset Limited is a long-distance passenger train operated by Amtrak, covering a 1,995-mile, 3,211-kilometer route between New Orleans and Los Angeles. Along this expansive journey, it makes key stops in cities such as Houston, San Antonio, and El Paso, Texas, as well as Tucson, Arizona. Before Amtrak began operations on May 1, 1971, the Sunset Limited was managed by the Southern Pacific Railroad. This train holds the distinction of being the oldest named passenger service in the United States, first introduced in November 1894 as the Sunset Express. Operating along the Sunset Route, it connected New Orleans to the Pacific coast and provided an essential southern gateway to the west. The Sunset Route played a unique role among the 3 transcontinental paths envisioned by the Pacific Railroad Acts, which aimed to link the East with the West. While the other 2 key routes originated from Chicago and St. Louis, the Sunset Route had strategic advantages. Its southern position meant it avoided the harsh weather challenges posed by the Wasatch and Sierra mountain ranges, which frequently disrupted travel along northern lines. As a result, it provided an all-season corridor, ensuring uninterrupted year-round service to the West Coast. Initially designed as an all-Pullman train, it featured only sleeping cars with no standard coaches, offering an elevated travel experience between New Orleans and San Francisco via Los Angeles. Introduced in 1894, the train maintained a distinctive look for decades, with cars sporting 6-wheel trucks and painted in dark olive green with black roofs and undercarriages. This color scheme reflected the elegance and prestige associated with Southern Pacific's top-tier services during that era. By the summer of 1926, the Sunset Limited provided an ambitious schedule, completing the New Orleans to San Francisco journey in 71 hours and 40 minutes. It even included a coast-to-coast sleeper service that originated in Jacksonville, Florida, and continued uninterrupted to Los Angeles. However, changes during World War II impacted its operation. On January 5, 1942, Southern Pacific halted the San Francisco-Los Angeles segment of the route, originally intended as a temporary pause for equipment maintenance. But the cut proved permanent, leaving Los Angeles as the western terminus. In the post-war period, streamlining efforts modernized the Sunset Limited, and on June 2, 1949, Southern Pacific rolled out faster schedules across its network. The Sunset's travel time was reduced to 49 hours and 45 minutes eastbound, while westbound journeys took just 48 hours. For those who came of age after the 1980s, it might be hard to fully grasp the bold spirit of weddings during that decade. Everything about the celebration was larger than life. Wedding dresses, cakes, and even guest lists reflected the era's signature love of extravagance. Dresses were designed to make an unforgettable statement. Brides walked down the aisle in gowns that were nothing short of theatrical, with dramatic high-lace necklines, voluminous puff sleeves, flowing skirts, and intricate embellishments. No 1980s wedding would be complete without the era's signature hairstyles, which often rivaled the gowns in volume and drama. Brides and bridesmaids alike embraced big hair, teasing their locks to gravity-defying heights with the help of countless cans of hairspray. Popular styles included voluminous curls, cascading waves, and elaborate updos adorned with lace veils, sparkling tiaras, or floral headpieces. Cakes followed suit, towering in tiers supported by ornate pillars, and occasionally adorned with features like working fountains. Flowers played a significant role, with wedding decor shifting away from simple arrangements to embrace elaborate floral installations. Oversized centerpieces, cascading bouquets, and dramatic altar displays were common, with bright colors or soft pastels reflecting the aesthetic trends of the time. Technology also began to leave its mark on weddings in the 1980s. The release of the camcorder in 1983 changed how people documented their special day, giving rise to the profession of wedding videography. Couples could now preserve not only photos of their big day, but moving images as well, capturing every detail, from the puffed sleeves of the bridal gown to the glittering decorations on the dance floor. Even the music and entertainment reflected the decade's exuberance. Popular 1980s hits filled the dance floors, and DJs became increasingly common, often replacing live bands to keep the party going with an endless mix of high-energy tunes. One of the most iconic weddings of the decade and a cultural touchstone for 1980s bridal fashion was the royal wedding of Lady Diana Spencer to Prince Charles in 1981. Watched by millions worldwide, Diana's dress became the pinnacle of 1980s bridal style. Designed by David and Elizabeth Emanuel, the gown featured a dramatic 25-foot train, billowing sleeves, and over 10,000 pearls. The wedding wasn't just a grand royal affair, it set the tone for bridal trends throughout the decade.